Hello, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good whatever. We're on SpeedGaming today, bringing you a Link to the Past Randomizer spoiler tournament bracket stage match between the number 3 seed Eriror and the number 6 seed zelgadissan. This is actually going to be a rematch of a Swiss stage match, which Eriror won by about 4 minutes back in week 3 of the Swiss. So calling this match today and bringing you the action, I am Reg. I am joined by Mercer. So Mercer, what are we going to be seeing tonight?
Oh, presumably at least one dead Ganon, maybe two, depending on how close the race is. But I expect it to be pretty tight between these two. We've already had one or two tournament or bracket matches go, and in that one at least, both runners took extremely aggressive routes, very low safety, especially early. Just do the same, or if they maybe bet on the other doing that and taking some deaths, it could be really interesting depending on just how in the way some of the safeties are, like a third sword or armor or any of that kind of thing.
Yeah, and then as mentioned, we did see this match before. Zelga came up about 4 minutes slower. Going to be curious, especially to see if he just plays his game or if he tries to find somewhere where he can cut corners and claw some of that time back and try to overturn that this time. But for now, we're off. And just a quick teaser for people in IRC just before the race started, both runners hate everything about their route.
I don't know if that's a spoiler or not. I think that's true of most seeds for most runners in this tournament. As we do see massive divergence early on, though. Is this a Houlihan start from zelgadissan?
Hey, yeah, this is absolutely Houlihan. He's going to jump into the water here, which offsets his camera. And if you look at the far right, you can see the little edge of the ledge getting slightly higher each time. Drops in here, and a few hundred rupees. Meanwhile, Eri went and picked up a glove, and he is gone.
I also grabbed some bombs out of the sanctuary that Zelgadis did not bother with.
Well, Zelda didn't want to go back to Link's house, which is where you wind up if you take the exit from the Houlihan cave. But skipping them again, well, Eriror's going right to the back sewers here.
Yeah, those are nice.
Yeah, bit of cash on the side too. So, always nice to have those before 90 seconds. It's the thing NMG runners dream of.
I don't think there's an NMG path that gets you to the boots in their vanilla location that quickly.
There's barely an NMG path that gets you to the sword that quickly. But there's Zelga's bombs. Getting that nice pack out of the well is... Eri tried for the 50-50 rock outside of Link's house, then the 50-50 bushes there, only got 1 and 3, but 3 bombs, probably good enough for CAC.
And there's a hook shot on the library. Lamp sitting on the bottle vendor as Zelga goes through Kakariko a little slower than Eriror will be able to dash through it.
Nice cape plus lamp combo, though.
Yeah, it's fine until we see a sword in the moon for alright.
Yeah, sure, let's go with that. Cape could totally just be leading to something on bumper ledge.
I mean, it wasn't that far out of the way. It could just be a nice safety.
Yeah, that's true,
Bike
too.
cave.
Cape's a wonderful item to have when doing Master Sword Ganon in particular, which we've seen a fair bit of this tournament. So... Eri opening up 4 chests in Blind's hideout. 20 arrows, 20 rupees, piece of heart, and a heart container. So I think Zelda actually did grab that one as well, because they are both on 4 hearts.
Yeah, and we did see Zelda in chat mentioning that he missed that there were bombs in Sanctuary, which is fair. I do think Eriror is going to have a little bit of an advantage after this opening, because Zelda is going to have to go back over to the library at some point, as we see in Akina's cave early and kind of slow.
Yeah, but what I will say about the time difference here, it's looking to me like Zelda did Houlihan to just stack up his money. As, hey, there's the sword, party time. But Zelda did Houlihan. That's generally accepted to be roughly, what, a minute to 90-second time loss. But as soon as he goes and gets his boots here, the trade-off will be he doesn't have the hook shot out of the library. Eri doesn't have the sword that he's on his way over to now, it looks like. So
Yeah.
they'll be pretty close to even, despite Eri getting the boots that much sooner.
Yeah, and Zelda does already have like pod money, which isn't going to be huge. Eri just has to pick some up somewhere along the way.
Yeah, things like pod money, big game money, big red bomb money, and so on. Even Zora money in some seeds. There's a lot of ways to spend cash in this game.
Gonna see a South Shore check here. Well, there's some magic for that cape in case it comes up at some point.
Dashes right through the red rupee drop, though. I'm shaking my head over here. That's a whole 20.
You can still get it. There it is.
Yeah, it's still there. He was fast enough. It didn't despawn. I'm
Set
just
up for
talking
a
out
water
my...
too, I think.
Yeah. Although, looks like he's continuing. Well, no, if you're doing a water walk, you've got to jump down while facing south.
Yeah,
But he's continuing. He's continuing on to Itrog Cave either way. So, if he wants a water walk, this would be the place to set it up since he's got to come here. And just to recap for chat a little bit, since I'm seeing it come up, these runners have the spoiler log for the seed. They have had it for about 21 and a half minutes now. So they had 15 minutes before the race started to go through. That's unfortunate for Eri. But these runners have had the spoiler log for about 20 minutes, 15 before the race. They can go through, they plan out their route. They know where every item in the game is, so they are simply skipping chests that have the items they do not need.
Yeah, that Quake medallion in Ice Rod Cave is going to be required. We do see on the tracker that is the entry to Turtle Rock.
Yep. We can also see Turtle Rock is a crystal, and Misery Mire as well. Needs bombos for entry and a crystal, so we'll be finding that one as well at some point.
Yeah, I think that whatever gap there was, that overworld death is going to close it. And maybe then some, because I think Zelda may be ahead now by a few seconds.
He does mess up his spin speed there on that a bit, unfortunately, but there is no Usain Bolt to punish him here, so it's fine. There's his hook shot, and now Zelda, as you said, is the one ahead on the route there. He's got that mushroom out of the waterfall cave that Eri has set up the water walk and is on his way to now. And Eri actually got a health refill out of the waterfall cave. Lost his water walk. Did not need it anymore, though, since he'd already gotten both chests.
Yeah. Very good that he didn't order it the other direction. That would have been unfortunate. Looks like he's going to go turn in that mushroom while Zelgadis heads up the mountain.
Yeah. With that hook shot, you can get everywhere on the light world side of the mountain except Tower of Hera and the Ether. Well, no, we've got the mirror. We can get to Tower of Hera. So we can get everywhere on the light world side of the mountain. Dark world, not an option without a second glove, but that's a choice that Zelda is making here. And Eri grabs a hammer from that mushroom turn-in.
That is going to be by far their best offensive option at the moment. Fighter Sword, on anything it'll work on at least. The Fighter Sword is not, a great weapon.
The Fighter Sword is a buff to boots. It is not a weapon. The bow, however, is quite a weapon.
And silver's also there.
Yeah. 2 bows in Paradox Cave. You'll love to see it. Of course, Zelda only has 10 arrows. Ari's kind of gone out of his way to open up a couple extra chests along the route, such as the ones in Blind's hideout, and he's got a full complement of 30 arrows as soon as he gets over there and gets it. And from the way he's going, Paradox Cave clearly on his mind right now.
Yeah, the only other thing Zelgadis really got from the trip up the mountain is the blue mail off the old man, which Eriror already has.
Yeah, and that's a really good defensive boost, especially when you're only on 4 or 5 hearts like these guys are. But it's not route making by any definition. It's one of those, it's in the way, so you're going to grab it.
And this might be what you were hinting towards earlier. Let's see whether this is front of escape or an Aga climb.
Well, it's not the Dark Cross, it's an Aga climb. Cape will get you through the magic barrier even without the Master Sword, but you still need a Fighter Sword at least to slash the curtain at the end. And here we go. Silver arrows are gonna be the weapon of choice throughout. They will kill everything in here within 1 hit.
Yeah,
Exhibit
the
A.
hammer is still at least a lot nicer than the Fighter Sword.
Yes, but hitbox sort of sucks. And menuing to it also sort of sucks. So, like, we did see Zelda use the Fighter Sword on those blue charging guards in the room with the first chest.
That is fair.
Although there is something I do want to call out. In Paradox Cave, Eri opened a couple of extra chests in that upper segment with the 5 chests. Got a blue boomerang and a fighter shield for his trouble. Now, neither of those are progression in and of themselves, but that boomerang in particular, it enables a couple of strats in a couple of rooms, mostly in Ganon's tower, but also in the Circle of Pots room that Zelga's almost to. I think he's just 3 rooms away from that, if I remember right. And the blue boomerang is just great for menuing. A lot of top level runners love it for that. Like, just having it in your menu helps.
Yeah, especially in spoiler log, you can end up with a very empty menu, which can make things super awkward.
Yeah. Although Zelda pulls out that hook shot, demonstrates why Circle of Pots boomerang strats are overrated unless you're playing vanilla.
And on into the most exciting boss fight in the game.
I think Ari was looking for a little bit of extra cash because he had 106 rupees, was looking for that 5 or under the pot. That puts him above 110. He can afford to go into Palace of Darkness immediately after killing Aghanim if he so chooses. Aside from the fact that we still don't have a Moon Pearl and we're killing Aghanim.
Yeah, also don't get hit once you rescue the monkey, or you'll need another 8 rupees.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing we don't talk about here.
It's definitely come up in this tournament, or I wouldn't have said it. Not too bad on the first cycle. Only 1 blue ball so far, if I was watching correctly.
I saw the same. And Ari is going to get the exact same patterns here, so he'll see the same 1 blue ball. But both of them just gotta get through this fight. It's really nothing but a time sink, but it does look like 1 blue ball gonna be the final total.
What is that bunny sprite?
I am totally blanking on what it's called, but it's a Phoenix Sprite thing because that's the sprite Zelda uses.
There's our Pyramid Moon Pearl, which is allegedly pretty uncommon, although I've seen it a lot lately.
Yeah, and chat's reminding me the name is Blue Badger, which I should know. Shame on me for blanking on that. Best part of Moon Pearl being on the pyramid, the bunny music continues until you go inside.
Yeah, but the bunny music loops after about 15 seconds because it wasn't really expected that you'd be there that long.
Yes, but it's still the best music in the game, even on the short loop. Anyways, Palace of Darkness. Lots of items in here. Probably not going to be seeing all of them.
Yeah, though it is full clearable, courtesy of that trip up the mountain for the bows.
Yep, and that slight detour to the waterfall cave and the witch for that hammer. Like, that's actually... Like, we don't care about this at all in spoiler seeds, even less than we do in regular seeds. But it is worth noting that that hammer is not something that the game logically expects them to have at this point until they find the flippers. Of course, we do see many divergence in the routing here. Zelda grabbing an extra key before going off to the bow-locked side of pod, and Ari just going straight there after grabbing the shooter key. So we'll see how that pays off. I haven't looked at the login enough detail to route out specific dungeons and see how I would expect these runners to do it, but they've both certainly got stuff in mind.
And Zelgadis grabs a couple of arrows from under pots there.
Can't ever have too many of those, especially with silvers. And also another factor, both of these runners have the magic mirror. So once they're done here, they can just mirror over, clear Crystal Eastern Palace if they so choose. And the Armos fight alone, it's a lot better with silvers than with wooden arrows, but it still takes 6 of them.
Yeah, although there's a lot of arrow drops. There's a Master Sword that will also help a lot.
yeah, can't win the game without it. So, Eri going out of his way to pick up some additional cash off the floor. And both of these guys doing hammer jump approaching from the top. Eri getting it in a lot fewer buffers and is actually first to enter the Dark Maze by like a frame. So with that Cane of Samaria in hand and the mirror out, I would expect that we're just right along to the boss now. And now, with Zelda stopping to get, like, just something as small as stopping to get a few arrows from under a pot, that puts Eri, what was that, about 3 seconds ahead shooting the eye statue? So,
something like that. Also, moved further up, but going to be very tight through here until either the next divergence or one of them makes a mistake, I would guess.
yeah, just as a general, like, just generally and historically, I think most people would give the execution advantage slightly to Eri, but Zelda's no slouch in that department. So you got to keep an eye on just the subtle, like, second or less time gains and losses at this point when they're this close. Because there have been a few mini divergences throughout so far, but they've done the same things to this point.
And here you're gonna wrap it up just a little bit sooner, but it's, you know, maybe a couple seconds difference.
Yeah, the chat's also calling out Zelda's still holding a small key. There is presumably nothing else in Palace of Darkness necessary, which means that he just sort of grabbed the extra small key, spent a couple dozen seconds, maybe a dozen or so seconds doing that.
But, oh, well, that's big. Eri just save and quit out.
Yeah. I don't know if that was intentional and he intends to just put off Eastern Palace until later, or if he just muscle memory.
I'm guessing it wasn't intentional. He's in chat saying oops.
Oh, okay. I missed that. So Eri going to be skipping Eastern Palace, going to have to come back to that at some point later. Meanwhile, Zelda straight into it. And unfortunately for Eri, we can't really say that when he comes back later, he'll have significantly better equipment to make the dungeon that much faster. Because he's already got the boots, he's already got the silver arrows. There's really not anything else that helps in Eastern Palace, which includes that sword, and that one as well.
Or that sword.
Yeah.
As long as the flute is not here in Eastern, the flute is required for this seed because Myra is a crystal. As long as it's not in Eastern, it's not the end of the world, although we may just head over there now. But it does cost a little bit of time.
Yeah, and that's sort of what I was saying earlier. Like, they killed Helmasaur within, what, a second of each other? So at that point, like, if you take a 10-second time loss when you're 1 second apart, that's 10 times the lead right there.
Oh, there's our mitts in the dig game. Relatively short dig game, too. Looks like 10 digs.
Yep, quite nice there. That'll let him just run right up into the village afterwards. Which, yep, there we go. Meanwhile, Zelda, done in Eastern Palace, got a crystal, got nothing else to show for it. So, back into pot. Taking a save and... He should still wind up on the pyramid after that, right? Yeah.
I think so, yeah. I don't know why he went and... Oh, there's our flute in, I guess it's the brewery.
That's the name of the location in the log. A lot of people just call it the Bombable Hut.
Also, yes, as Chad is pointing out, when I think top 8 of the spoiler tournament, I think silvers plus butter sword Ganon.
Absolutely. Like, don't you want the freest 1-in-1 cycles you've ever had? Because that's what Gold Sword is. That's all it does for you.
It gets you the potential 0 cycle on Tronex.
Yes, that's true as well. And it also makes a few other things like Cold Stare a bit more consistent. Though Pendant Ice Palace, we may not be seeing that fight today. Because I think looking over the items, we're missing a Flippers, we're missing 2 rods, we're missing a Bombos medallion, and that's really it for item completion.
Yeah, I do think that moving back to 2 chests in Hype Cave is about as far as we'll ever see our runner in spoiler tournament go for Butter Sword, but you'll go that far.
I like what Zelda is doing here. Look where he picked up his mitts. Like, the number of digs to get the item from the dig game is something in the spoiler log. So being able to optimize where the item comes out and where you pick it up, especially in this super, super edge case where it is the Titan's mitts that you're getting, that's a cool optimization there. Anyways, continuing on the route, we did see Eri turn in the Smith for 10 arrows before going into Thieves Town. Zelda has not grabbed that, but he is activating his flute here, and based on that mirror location, I would somewhat expect it to be right back into Thieves Town for him. It is a crystal, can get any necessary items out of it.
Yeah, if the purple chest is required, may just be doing the Smith sequence, you know, in a slightly different order than Ares doing it. If it's not, I'm not sure why Ares turned in the Smith.
And assuming it is required, it's basically, do you want to go back down south from the village to get the Smith and do the whole sequence in one shot? Or do you want to do the disjointed sort of thing that Eri did, where you grab the Smith on your way into the village, and then you have to go back to that east side to get the purple chest again afterwards? And honestly, I don't think there's a time gain or loss to be had either way there. Certainly not a significant one. Yeah, the Ares just saying he derped.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that's always possible, too.
Which, I mean, in a situation like this, your focus 3 or 4 moves ahead on the route oftentimes. So just doing something like that is pretty normal if you're not consciously thinking yourself through it as you're actively doing it. And besides that, I'm still pretty sure it doesn't actually gain or lose more than a couple seconds at most either way.
Well, a little bit more if he just doesn't need to do the sequence at all, and there's nothing in the purple chest. But
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's not the case I was thinking about at all here. And besides that, Aries going for purple chest.
okay, yeah. Zelda does need to be a little cautious here. Dying at this point in Thief Sound would be very painful.
Yep, but there are a couple hearts under pots you can grab here. And the enemies are dropping them as well, so yeah, suddenly he's back in really good shape. And there is those flippers. Cannot beat Swamp Palace without them.
Although if we can find a way to, then we can stop getting them at all, because it's the only thing you really need them for at this point.
And it's looking like he may just be taking them straight into that dungeon. So, yeah. Putting them to immediate use. And like you said, Swamp Palace, the only thing in the game that cannot be sequence, well, the only flipper lock thing in the game that cannot be sequence broken. And I'm pretty sure if we found something to sequence break them, it probably wouldn't be allowed as a minor glitch anyways.
Probably true, just because it would invalidate the item entirely.
It would be fun though. I really don't like that item. Anyways, off to the races we go. We've got to remember. Oh, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, there is just something kind of funny watching both our runners do blind with the gold sword in particular, who cares just as much about the gold sword as he does about the fighter sword.
Yep. Hammer, fighter sword, gold sword, can of Samaria, pick your poison, 9 hits regardless of weapon to take out blind. But I do want to say it does look like Eri is ahead on the route here, since Zelga's doing the purple chest right now, and I have a hunch we'll be right into Swamp Palace afterwards with it. But there is that Eastern Palace to consider. Eri has not yet done that, where Zelga has.
And Zelda gets a mild time save by not even grabbing the item from the smiths. I actually didn't know that was optional. I thought you had to get that for the purple chest to spawn.
Well, today you learned.
Yep.
You can keep that in mind for your next spoiler run. Meanwhile,
one of the new glitches here looks like is Eri sets up for a diver down.
Yep. Uses that block, clips himself into the rail, jumps down, and the water in these kinds of rooms in Swamp Palace is only actually water at the stairs. If you get onto it anywhere else, it acts as solid ground, and Eri is turning around for the big chest.
Yeah, also manages to avoid getting wrecked by those stairs.
The silly stairs are always fun. If I recall correctly, the trick is to dash into them as if you were doing a key dash through a locked door, and you hold left, and that solves the problem.
Somewhat infrequently seen doing the same diver down twice routing. But that is our Bombos Medallion, so one of our few remaining required items. We're just looking for the rods now.
Yep. Ice rod hunts are absolutely nothing new to anybody who's played any significant amount of Rando. Fire rod hunts, slightly less common, but that item also blocks deceptively little, so it's pretty common as well. And of course, since we have the spoiler log, both of these guys know exactly where both of those items are and aren't actually hunting for them. And not quite zero cycle Argus from Eri. but not very far from it. Unfortunately, the difference between getting that really close one cycle and a more ordinary one cycle is 0 seconds. Argus is a great boss like that. Zelda showing off a bit of a different setup for Diver down there. Still uses the Cane of Samaria block as before, but if you jump into the water and then you jump out while facing right, it's generally much easier to clip into the block and into the rail than what Eri showed off, which I believe is a little bit more precise, but also faster since you're not jumping in the water.
And we'll get a reconvergence here once both our runners finish these dungeons as Eri goes to finish out Eastern.
Yep, Eri's got to just grab the big key, which was somewhere on the right side, or no, not on the right side there. I do not do chest names, apparently. But just got to grab that big key, and then you'll be straight off to the boss. And we will, as you said, see what the time difference between these two guys is once both bosses are down. And good news, friends. Gold Sword does mad damage, even to things you're supposed to kill with arrows. Just dashed right through those Igors. And Zelda gets an even more extreme version of the one cycle kill that Eri got. Has to sit through that entire cycle with no puffs. Feels really bad, man. And there's the bosses down. Eri is basically that Crystal Catch cutscene behind, which is like, what, 8 seconds? But we are converged and back on the mountain. No rods means Turtle Rock, probably not the most appealing play in the world, but if we're coming here instead of Misery Mire, I would expect at least one of them to be up here. Probably both, because that's how it goes.
Probably. Let's see where they head.
Well, it's gotta be somewhere in the Dark World for starters, because the only place we had left in the Light World side was Hera. And Eri manages to start his Quake animation just a couple seconds before Zelda gets out of it. So we are still really close here.
Yeah, when we've seen them in the same dungeon, Eri seems to gain a few seconds here and there. There's just been a couple more major errors. Both Powder and Fire Rod in Hookshot Cave. The Powder is actually a really nice safety.
Eri's skipping it though. But looks like both these guys are taking that Fire Rod right into Turtle Rock. So if this wasn't a strong Ice Rods in Turtle Rock signal, I don't know what it is. But anyways, back to your point where it does seem like whenever they're in the same dungeon, Eri does seem to gain seconds here and there. As far as vanilla NMG goes, Turtle Rock is one of the most variable splits in my experience, even for top tier runners. So I really want to see how that factor comes into play and how clean Eri is relative to Zelda here. It's also worth noting that Eri is not actually ahead in this dungeon. He has to go get the big key out of the first chest off to the left here. And then they'll both be off to the chain jumps.
So guys, a solid 4 seconds or so ahead going into that room. But Eri's making up a little bit of time in each room, I think.
And yeah, there's the ice rod, but yeah, like honestly, we're at the level here where even though I generally like to think I'm pretty decent at identifying some of the small time save stuff, like they were about 7 or 8 seconds apart entering the dungeon. That's close to like 2, and I cannot identify 5 seconds where Eri has outdone Zelda inside Turtle Rock. Man's
that's
just
Eri's on half a heart here and no backup safeties other than that cape.
Yeah. That could be a little rough, but he is through. Does have to take that room slightly slowly to make sure he dodges the anti-fairies. But he's through.
And yeah, it's real tight here. Oh.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate for Eri. The Poke RNG in that room can be a pretty big deal. But taking a death there hurts. Because he's got to go all the way back through all the other rooms that he's already done. And he doesn't have, like, a Mimic Cave trip to reset his dungeon entry point. He goes back to the start.
Yeah, no. Obviously, it doesn't have to go out of the way for all the keys and everything. It's not like you have to do everything, but that's still going to be a big time loss. That's going to put Zelgadis with a lot of room to breathe.
Yeah. And honestly, just it sucks in Turtle Rock in particular, even compared to other dungeons. Because, like, look at this pipe. That's a fixed speed. That's essentially an auto-scrolling segment. Same thing for the railed Samaria blocks. Like, you cannot go faster in there. You cannot save time inside that pipe.
Yeah. Now there's still Mire, there's still Skullwoods. Skullwoods less so, but Mire, and then of course Scannon's Tower. So it's not like there's no time left. But that one is pretty painful.
Yeah, like there's, especially with the way that Eri has been playing in the small to save all of these seconds here and there over what Zelda's been doing, there's still plenty of time for this race to swing back around in any direction. But if you're going to take an unfortunate death like that, Turtle Rock is the last place I would want to do it.
Yeah, well, especially with Icebreaker now. Like, it used to be Cold Stare, but...
Yeah, that's true.
Nice try next fight.
Yeah, Gold Sword really putting in work for once. You mentioned the Zero Cycle earlier. Zelda showing it here. I'm expecting, hoping that we'll see it again on Eri's side just because it looks really, really nice. But that's like the one place in the game that the Gold Sword legitimately saves time for top level players. And there it is for Eri as well.
It's just very nice. You don't get to see it that often, especially in these spoiler log matches, because you rarely end up with the gold sword.
Yeah. It's kind of unfortunate, but it makes sense because getting the gold sword is usually really slow. But this seed, it just sort of all really worked out.
Yeah, the
Because there was only
sword to get was required for Aga Tower.
Yep. And then the second sword they got was in Palace of Darkness, which was right in the way. And the third and fourth were both in Hype Cave. So if you got Zero Cycle Trinex like both of these runners did, you save time by grabbing that sword. Which you can basically never say about the gold sword, unless you need it for the consistency on the Ganon fight. And Zelda actually doing a really good job getting that double spike slash on the Gibdo to kill it. But that's not nearly as big of a time save as it would be with other swords. That's actually Gold Sword being useful again, because Gold Sword's the same damage class as the spikes. So the only real time save there was the fact that the spikes stopped the knot back and let him get the second hit in that much quicker. That moth fight was great.
Yeah, and I was going to mention, this comes up occasionally. In the vanilla game, the gold sword does not actually damage Mothula. So, it was a tempered sword for that fight for randomizer purposes.
Right. Rando did patch that. However, from what I've been told, they did not patch gold sword spin attacks, and they did not patch tempered sword spin attacks either. So don't spin attack the moth unless you're on Master Sword or worse.
And then you see, oh wow, that was really something.
I think that was better than Zelga's, and Zelga's was already really great. Yeah. I think chat's been keeping track of the time differences on entering dungeons here, so I'll rely on them for the time difference entering Misery Mire here. But it was about 55-56 seconds entering Skull Woods. Chat's saying that Eri saved 5 seconds in that span of time, just on the moth kills. So yeah, that's ridiculous given how short a full go mode Skull Woods like that is and how good Zelda's moth fight was.
Yeah, it looks like we might actually have, we have a God Mire set up. So Mire is one of the dungeons that gets most improved in general by spoiler log races because you know where that key is when you walk in. But in this case, it would have been the first chest to check anyway.
Yep. The legendary Go Mode Godmire. You love to see it. Although I would make the case that this dungeon is not at all improved when the big key is vanilla, even if you know that it is.
And it saves you some time checking other chests.
Yeah, but you still need to get a small key from somewhere to be able to get to the left side. And then a decent percentage of the time, not necessarily a high one, but a decent one, if the big key is vanilla, there is a small key in the northern chest. And if there is a small key in that chest, then the big key has to be vanilla. It's part of the key logic for this dungeon. So it's just having to sit through that cutscene sucks regardless. Although we did see some nice spooky action on Zelga's side there to save him some time in the basement. And there's silver arrows. Just 2 more once the eye shows itself. There we go.
Very nice, and that is gonna be zelgadissan's 7th crystal. So gonna be heading back up the mountain to GT momentarily. Eri missed the spooky the first time, like a little off by being too far south.
Yeah. And he was in chat with it before we even saw it too, so he knew what happened. But +1 to his bonk count, and that probably cost him about 3.5 to 4 seconds. So he's got to make some up in GT here.
Yeah, it might depend, like whether there's enough room for him to make up that time. I don't know if there is anyway. Like he's definitely executing better on the small stuff than Zelgadis is, but that's, you know, I can't see where the differences are. I just see the difference in the results.
Right.
And I don't think that there's going to be enough there, barring a major mistake. Kind of the story of this race has been that Eriror's been better most of the time, but has had a few bigger problems. Whereas the only like kind of big-ish error Zelgadis had was missing that there were bombs in Sanctuary.
Yeah. Although even on the big scale errors, Eri really only had 2 of them. I don't know if you want to call it a mental lapse or what, but he did save and quit out of Palace of Darkness instead of mirroring to Eastern when they were doing that dungeon. And then that death in Turtle Rock. And that's...
There was also an overworld death early on.
Oh, yeah, there was, true. When he was going to Ice Shroud Cave, he died to one of the electrified enemies. So chat's saying that the difference between these two, 50 seconds coming out of Misery Mire. So
it pauses to grab a 7th heart.
7 hearts, red mail. I'll take it.
Yeah, worth mentioning, because I'm not actually sure we ever said this. This is only game 1 of 3, so regardless of the result here, there will be at least 1 more game between these 2.
Yeah, that's true. Game 2 currently scheduled for 5:45 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, which is about 47 hours from now. And then Game 3, if needed, I think has not been scheduled yet. I think there was talk of doing it this weekend, but nothing confirmed.
Looks like Rando Room, or else Zelgadis would not head there.
Yep, because there's really nothing else I think that he would want on the safety front. Like, half magic would be nice, but very far from necessary, and there it is.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if you'd go out of the way for half magic, given, you know, Silvers and Butter Sword.
Yeah, not at all, especially at this level of runner. Although we did see Eri did detour to the Stalfos room, got an extra key. I don't think that's faster than just getting the key off of the mini Helmasaur, which Zelda intends to do if he's going upstairs with 1 in hand. And Eri's in chat saying he misread his log. So he gets to save himself a mini Helma key. No, but sword beams there. Sword beams suck.
It solves them for the next room by not using the sword at all.
But does get a little bit trolled again in this one. Knocks his Isaac right between the spikes, and it doesn't take spike damage. It did take a hit, so no more sword beams to worry about. And gonna use silver arrows against the lane molas.
Very nice.
And chat keeping track of the times for us. Shoutouts to Rick, who's handling that right now. And Zelda actually saved about 24 seconds in the basement of Ganon's tower, which primarily attributable to Eri detouring to Stalfo's room. We do have a lot less of Eri getting wrecked by sword beams in the gauntlet here than we saw on Zelga's side. But that's not more than a few seconds of save.
Yeah, and it's not even like it's going to be, there's much room for there to be a long cannon fight. I mean, Aga 2 is probably the biggest potential time save here, barring Trollon going completely ham on Zelgadis.
Yeah, and Gold Sword minimizes the possibility of Moldorm just going ham. Like, that wasn't very friendly pattern, but Gold Sword makes that fight kind of a joke. But yeah, Gold Sword does make one cycle Ganon phases 1 and 2 pretty free. I would be shocked to see Zelda miss those. Which means that, yeah, with silver arrows in hand, Aga 2 is probably the biggest room for time loss or time save remaining.
Gets 2 on the first one, nearly misses the triple.
Only gets 1 out of a somewhat unfriendly pattern there. Zangles are little off. But that's it. And that was 4 cycles?
Yeah.
Not unreasonable, but there is room to at least save 1, which will be, what, about 7 seconds?
It is possible to get the double triple on that one, although it would not be trivial.
If we see the double triple from Eri there, then that's going to be crazy. But we do see Zelda dropping into the Ganon fight just as Eri enters Aga 2.
It just gets 2 on the first one as well, so that matches.
I'm pretty sure those 2 only counted as 1 because they hit same frame.
Yeah, I have a much harder time telling when it's not audio, but definitely gets a double there, so also going to be 4 cycles probably.
Yep. A little unlucky, but that's how the mechanic is. And Zelda, 1 more hit with the sword on Ganon, and then it'll be silver arrow time.
Silver's his one weakness.
Yeah. Honestly, with the gold sword, very little to talk about or focus on for this fight. The big thing being, yeah, he intentionally skipped the torch glitch. Didn't get the triple out of it, but there you go.
It just has to walk across here, and we'll take a 1-0 lead in this quarterfinal series.
Yep, and that is Zelda across the bridge, finishing with a time of 58 minutes and 27 seconds. An hour 13 if you add the study period. So GG to him. Eri into phase 3, not going to be far behind.
Yeah, even with a little misfortune there, this is going to be within, 45 seconds? Something like that? 50 seconds?
Maybe about a minute. The last time difference we got from chat was 61 seconds grabbing the duck at the end of Cannon's Tower.
Does get the triple, although it's not a huge difference there.
Right. And by the time the fanfare is done playing and Eri crosses the bridge here, it will be right about a 1 minute difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eri's official time is listed as 1 hour, 14 minutes, and 28 seconds, which comes out to 59 minutes once you take off the study period. So that is going to be the race, and GG to both of the runners.
Yeah, it's an exciting start to the series. I'm sure there's some things Eri wishes he had back, but that's why it's best of 3 in the elimination brackets.
Yeah. And we do have Eri with us. Got Zelda with us, so GG's to both of you.
Hey, GG's, thank you.
Yeah, GG's, alright.
And
Yeah.
it was a crazy race to just kind of be sitting there and kind of peeking over occasionally and seeing all the issues, and that I'm still constantly losing time every single screen.
Yeah, I'm just going to say it straight up. Eri's a monster when it comes to that sort of thing. Like, there is no other way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's obviously unfortunate on Eri's side, but to be quite honest, this is like the only way that I'm winning this series is if something similar happens again. I know that coming into this, I'm not beating someone like Eri in an execution race. So, yeah, absolutely, GG's. With the issues there were, and for it to still be this close is insane.
I think I did cause it myself though. Like, I didn't actually write down where power was. I knew it was somewhere on Duff Mountain, and then I didn't realize it was actually in Hookshot Cave, so I really should have picked it up. And then I would have used it in TR, and then it would have been fine. So it was a lot of self-inflicted stuff. And I mean, being good at sport luck is being able to balance out, like, being fast and being safe, and well, you have so much experience that you know what you can handle, and sometimes I just like teeter over the edge a little bit too much. So I mean, it's well deserved no matter what happens, right?
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from on that for sure. And I've still got to say that Zelda, man, like, even with what happened on Eri's side, very, very few runners still beat that run from him. So,
yeah, honestly, I don't know if I could have put up a much better performance than I did here. And yeah, it was still this close. So, I mean, I'm happy with the win. Obviously, I'm not quite as happy with how it had to come, but at the same time, yeah, it still took a probably almost as good of a performance as I could have done to even compete, which is just, it's mind-blowing to me how good the top players of this game are.
but you did get that performance.
And don't sell yourself short, dude. Like, you are actually a really good runner. Like, it's you're not making obvious mistakes and all that. So it's just really small stuff. And
yeah, it's like I was saying when you guys were in Turtle Rock. Like, it's a high enough level that I am having trouble spotting where some of those time losses and time gains are coming from. And I consider myself pretty good at identifying those things when I can sit down and look at it.
Yeah, I know I'm doing okay. Like, I don't want this to come across as like a pity party on me or something. I'm really happy with how I performed here, and I do know I can compete. I just know that going into this, I am definitely the underdog going against someone like Eri. So that's all I'm trying to get out of it.
Yeah, and I can see that, and I think Eri said the same thing, but don't sell yourself too short on that.
So let's switch to the route, because this was a really interesting scene, and I think both of us had some small mess-ups, like me not doing EP, you forgetting about the bombs and sank. After I did pod, I realized that it would have probably been better to just leave pod for later and just first do Hype Cave, get the flute, like Hype Cave, digging game, get the flute, and then do all that stuff, and then go to pod at Easter and get some Aria. Because then you don't need to get the gold sword in pod, and you just have tempered for the rest of the game, and that's probably enough. So you actually save time not going to the basement.
Yeah, I actually thought about something similar. The reason that I went ahead with it, like I was actually thinking during the Aga fight, like, do I actually want to go to pod? And I realized that I hadn't looked up where money was anywhere else, and I was counting on some of the money in the pod basement to be able to get me to do the digging game and pod combined. So I don't know where I would have got my money at that point. But I was seriously considering just skipping pod for a while and coming back to it later.
The money is a good point. Like, I mean, you did Hudan, so you had 150 or something. Maybe if you open a few more chests, you would have had enough, like in Kakriko. I'm not exactly sure.
I believe it was at 170 something, because we were looking at rupee counts because yours was pretty tight.
That wasn't great. That wasn't great.
70 heading into pod, so would have needed a big 20 somewhere off the dig game or elsewhere.
I was considering, like, after I did Aga, just mirroring and doing the Dark Cross chest, because that had 300. And then I realized I probably would have had enough if I just got a few good drops. And otherwise I would have gone to Eastern and the Cannonball chest had another 300, but then I would have had to walk all the way back to get Kiki and then go back. So like there were no real fast options. So I just hoped for a few drops and I got them, and then I had to look for the right path in Circle of Paths. But it was a really cool seed. It was like when the first thing you control F is Moon Pearl and you see that it's on the pyramid, you know it's gonna be great.
I checked. So my habit when I look at seeds, especially commentating, is I check if it's going to be pendant dungeons required, and then the Moon Pearl. So I kind of burst out laughing when I got to that.
Yeah, I saw the pearl, and then not even just the pearl, but you had to go pretty much everywhere in the light world if you wanted to have any decent equipment. Like you had Kakariko, Agina, Ice Rod Cave. The mountain had both bows, which you didn't have to have, but otherwise you're stuck on a fighter sword and I guess a hammer. It was gross.
Yeah, it was really rough to see which order was optimal and all that stuff. I'm pretty sure that if you put this in front of someone else, they would like come up with something completely different as well. It's really cool.
Yeah, because you guys took pretty different routes through the first 5 to 7 minutes. Eri, you went and got the boots as soon as possible. Zelga, you Houlihan right into CAC.
Yeah, if I had realized those bombs were in sync, I absolutely would have done the exact same opening where you just get the glove and get the boots immediately. But I didn't see any other good way to get my bombs, so I was thinking, well, I just got to go to Kakariko anyway. So
yeah,
and missing that chest is a big deal.
Yeah.
That Houlihan did smooth out the rupee route a little bit for you, at least, though. But yeah, I can see it for sure. It would have been a time save, I think, in the end, if you had pulled the rupees out like Eri did elsewhere.
It was so interesting though. Like you could have also just started at Sank, get the bomb, save and quit, get gloves, and then immediately get the sword. And I'm not sure how much that would have impacted stuff, because let's say if you like a trip to Agina, but you have an extra save and quit. So there's all these things that like were so minuscule time-wise that you just play it safe and just, oh fine, I'll just go back to Agina with the boots because you have to, because all the other free swords are in the Dark World.
Yeah, like this is the sort of seed that I could see, like in a qualifier type setting where you take the seed and you seek to optimize it to the greatest extent possible. I could see people playing the seed probably 7 or 8 times trying to just figure out the first 15 minutes and to say absolutely nothing of the rest of it.
Yeah, and I think the rest of it is pretty straightforward when it comes to like after you get the mids and be able to get the flute, even though that wasn't pretty on my part either.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess the biggest thing I had in mind there was what you guys were discussing earlier about whether or not to go straight into pod.
Yeah, the post-Agina play or post-Aghanim play is pretty interesting. Like, I think it mostly comes down to the rupee red. But yeah, the 10-15 seconds you save by not having to get gold sword probably would be worth it, even though you gain like 3 or 4 of that back on Trinex. But you don't have to do cold stare, so then it doesn't really matter as much.
Also, speaking of bosses, your Argus fights, they made me sad.
Yeah, I got like one puff got a bit too close to the bottom, so I couldn't hook it. Like it immediately just got back to Argus, so that was kind of annoying. But I think I messed up in movement.
Yeah, and I just messed up where I held out the poke too long, and I just completely dropped all the inputs. I was like hitting the buttons, and then nothing was happening because I was off my cycle.
Did you go for the poke dash?
Not poke dashes, no, just holding it.
Poke.
Yeah, since with the gold sword you don't have to poke at all. I was just, I mean, you don't have to dash at all. So I was just kind of mashing the hook shot in kind of a rhythm, and I messed it up.
You both were just sitting there watching Argus spin all of its 0 buffs, and it just felt bad.
Yeah, it sure did. Also, I actually thought that Swamp was a pennant until someone said something about Swamp being a crystal. So thank you very much for that. I was all over the place this seed. I have no idea what was going on. Like going to the Stealthos room instead of the Randomizer room, because somehow in my head the Randomizer room is the stupid Stealthos room, because that's also another room where you never go in MG. So I'm playing really well.
Yeah. At least you got the flippers before, because I don't think we talked about Swamp Palace at all before those flippers were grabbed.
Well, I knew I needed bombos, so I went in there for bombos, and then I realized that it was actually crystal, and I was like, "Oh, well, that's something."
Okay. Yeah.
And then the other interesting tidbit was whether it would be faster to get the big key, beat Argus, then go back for bombos, or to just do the diver down twice. That's another thing that I didn't actually internally time, but this just seemed cooler.
Yeah, I guess I know it's been timed a few times that from the flooded chest, as long as you don't get hit by the silly Sayers, it's faster to go back. But that was before Diver Down was a thing, and yeah, I have no idea how Diver Down plays into that timing, actually.
I would guess as long as you're pretty consistent with Diver Down that it's going to be faster to just do it twice. But if you mess it up 1 or 2 times, then maybe it would have been faster to just run back in.
Yeah, that sounds right to me as well.
That's so cool about Spoiler Doctor. There's all these little niche scenarios that don't really come up that often because you usually just clear efficiently, and now it's actually like min-maxing all these weird wacky routes, and it's really cool. I really love this mode.
Same. This is honestly my favorite way to play Rando. It's like I'm not an NMG runner, but this feels like a perfect mix between an NMG type speedrun and then actually putting some Rando behind it. So
yeah,
I love this so much.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's really the best of both worlds to me, because you don't really get randoed and you do get to put yourself in interesting scenarios, but it's also not the same thing every time, which I know a lot of people who are not into the vanilla speedruns mind. So yeah, if anyone would like to just try something like a bit more speedrunny but not always samey, then I would definitely recommend this. The first 15 minutes are like really stressful, especially if you're not used to it. But Like, after you got a few under your belt, it's really not that bad. And if you're just doing it casually, just give yourself 20 minutes at first, or 25. It's just really cool to route it out on your own pace.
Yeah, can definitely agree with that. Like, I'm pretty big on the idea that if you're competing in this mode, it's probably the hardest and most stressful format to play at a top level for, as far as rando goes. But there is absolutely no denying that it's really straightforward to pick up and get into casually. And definitely a good change of pace from every other seed being an ice shot hunt.
Yeah, and those are the things I dislike most about rando, now that I'm actually good at the game. It's like, you get into rando because it's like, oh, anyone can win any race. You just need to get lucky at some point. And that's like the same reason why people get into Magic the Gathering and all that stuff. And when you get better, the variance is actually what kind of hurts it for you at times, even though it's like there's still interesting scenarios and all that, and that's why I would play rando. But it's also like, man, why did that person beat me? I played so well, and this kind of negates that and gives like a bit more the edge to execution again and routing. And kind of diminishes the thing that I dislike about rando nowadays.
Yeah, at the same time, there is a reason that, like, even in normal formats, all of the best rando players are, like, for the most part, the top level execution players. But definitely agree with what you've been saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, being able to clear more chests a minute is always going to be an advantage. It's just that some people,
Right.
like,
It's just
like take that and just throw the route all over the head, like,
Yeah.
all over the place, and it's like, oh well, just go to this one location and look out. And of
Yeah.
course, like, on average, you'll be on the top more often, but like, especially in a tourney format, like when you then like don't luck out twice in a row and you're suddenly out, that hurts.
Yeah, that's true. It's the average versus the single race format. But anyways, I think I've said my piece. Mercer, do you got anything you want to say or ask about before we move on?
No, I was just going to shout out the remaining 2 races tonight, but unless you want to handle that.
Well, we can do that. I don't really want to cut off Eriror Zelga here because there's a lot of good discussion going on here, but unless you guys have more that you want to say, I think I've pretty much said my piece on this. So
I'd like to thank Zelda for the awesome race, and I hope the other 2, or maybe only 1, who knows, are going to be just as exciting. So thank you very much, and see you on Thursday.
Yeah, GG's for sure. Looking forward to it, and I would expect a weekend race. Just throwing that out there, and thank you guys for doing the commentary and the tracking and restreaming. It's always awesome to be able to kind of be showcased. So, thanks for having us.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you so much.
And big shout outs to our tracker Valady, who we didn't really get a chance to shout out through the race with all that was going on, but was behind the scenes keeping the tracker lit up for us, keeping everything in order. So big thanks there. And yeah, as Mercer said, we've got a couple more races tonight. I'll let you shout those out, man.
Sure. So both of them are currently scheduled for SpeedGaming 3. They are only an hour apart. I believe there's a chance that the second one might get moved if the first one runs over, but we'll see. But at 8:15 on SpeedGaming 3, we've got Game 2 of Gerdo versus Kyong. Spoiler, Kyong took Game 1. Kyong is really, really ridiculous at this format. Was undefeated in Swiss, is the defending champion of this tournament. Always exciting to see him play, but Gerdo is also a really good runner, and certainly could take a game off of Kyong and force a Game 3. And then after that, we've got Game 1 of Relkin versus Pika Pals, which should also be really fun to watch. So I know I'll have both those on kind of in the background myself. And, you got time to get dinner or lunch or whatever your time zone may demand before those start in about an hour and 15 minutes.
Yep. And then tomorrow, we've got Game 3 of Gerdo versus Kyong, if it turns out necessary. Game 2 of Relkin versus Pika Pals, and that's all that's on the schedule. But SpeedGaming's got plenty of things going on. more or less all time. So if you want any sort of speedrunning action, I think their schedule's been in chat a few times. You can click that, check it out. And yeah, I think that'll be about it for us. I've been Reg, and my partner's been Mercer, so I'll see you guys over some other match and let Mercer have the last word on this.
Yeah, somebody mentioned in chat there's apparently also a true ice rod hunt on SpeedGaming tonight. That could last anywhere from 5 minutes to about 90 minutes. Have fun if you want to watch that or play in it. Good night, everybody.